put a smile on your face.
And we are back here on Tobago Updates, live here from Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. We have with us this morning President of the Tobago October Carnival Association, Mr. Dexter Sandy. Good morning to you, Mr. Sandy.
Good morning to you and good morning to all your viewers.
All right. So I know you normally hear this big excitement coming from Mr. Sandy when he comes onto the screen. But, you know, it was an exciting weekend, and into this morning, his face is a bit, you know, on the restful side of things, right? But nonetheless, he is happy to be here with you this morning. I'm happy to have him here, you know, just to speak about the Carnival experience over the weekend. We know it was a very big weekend for Tobago. I know we normally have the February Carnival that happens between both islands, but October Carnival is a Tobago Carnival, yes. Right? So we're here to speak about our Tobago Carnival here this morning. So what was the overall experience like for you? Because I'm hearing conversations about you actually being a part of a band, you know, taking part in the Carnival experience itself. So how was the overall experience for you?
So the overall experience for me personally, I was really excited to participate in the Carnival on a whole. Mm-hmm. I mean, from Wednesday night, there was the Soca Titans across at the Carnival City there.
Yes.
And I would have been there from the beginning, the first performance with Castor and Cupid. And just seeing Castor on stage and what he presented, mm-hmm. It said to me that Tobago Soca is in good hands.
Yes.
Right? Iconic Mass, we would have supported Castor with his production. And then we saw the other contestants and we saw who came out on top. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that stage performance and the quality of the event on a whole, it signaled that Tobago is heading in the right direction when it comes to soca. We moved into Thursday. There was a calypso competition at Magdalena. Personally, I wasn't able to attend, but good feedback. I was in the band house selling costumes, distributing costumes right up until Saturday, Juve morning. But the Carnival, the mass competition that was held on Friday night, I heard that it was well executed. The Mother's Life camp, I spoke to those guys Saturday morning and they said, listen, it was the first time they did it pre-Juve and it worked well, right? I don't know if it's something that they will continue to practice, but it worked well and it flowed straight into Juve morning. Yeah, Juve morning, we had a slight delay in start, mm-hmm. and it's about 1 hour, but I must say once we hit the road, the masqueraders really enjoyed it. The spectators, we had a lot more spectators along the route, especially in Lower Scarborough. So it spoke to the volume of people that really believe in the Tobago Carnival and that we are going well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the delay. I just want to say that normally when I plan big programs or I'm involved in it, that delay gives, you know, the juices to start flowing, to get the people to get ready to, you know, do what they have to do. And in this case, chip on the road, if so to speak. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, that delay might have happened, but I think overall, I have never been on social media and see so much positive comments about one event, right? And it came from across the board. It came from visitors to the island. It came from Tobagonians themselves, you know, seeing the participation of both islands in the thing overall. Yep. There was just positivity all around, and I'm really happy to hear that the weekend was a success. So how many bands participated in Carnival itself?
So what would have been registered would have been 21 bands for Sunday, mm-hmm. Which is the traditional and the contemporary mass. For Juve, there was about 33 bands registered, and night mass was supposed to be 12. Right? I can't confirm that all would have showed up, but I know for the Toka members, they would have showed up on the road. Not all the bands are on the Toka. But definitely for the bands that did show up, they did enjoy themselves. You know, in any activity, there would be surprises. And I think the band leaders, they really responded well to any challenges that they had. And when I spoke with them on the road one-on-one, they were really happy. Right, that all the hard work has paid off, and just looking back at the footage, Tobago really looked well.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And in terms of the contrast between last year and this year, in terms of band participation and overall attendance of the Carnival sessions, what would you say was the improvement, or what would you like to see improved?
Definitely one thing that we asked for very early would have been a stage.
Yes.
So this year we got what was called a staging area at Market Square. They branded it, called it the Carnival City. It was well decorated and it was a designated area, which was bigger than, I would say, the stage by the sea, for the masqueraders to really cross and showcase themselves.
Yes.
October Carnival Mass has nothing related to competition, and we prefer to keep it that way when it comes to Mass right
man.
now.
Fun
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's display of your theme for the year, and really sell the tourism of the Carnival and the Tobago. Yeah. So we were glad that we did have the staging area. There would have been some additions that were made to the road. We had CO2, we had stations with confetti, so as a band crossed that area, you could really see that the masqueraders enjoyed the element that was added there. And at the close of play on Sunday night, there was a fireworks display, right? So that added to really a finale of the road experience for the masqueraders and also the spectators.
Yes.
I mean, for us as masqueraders, we were fortunate. A few bands would have been at the after party at Shore Park, and the rain came down. Right, hence my horse threw it this morning. We were out in the showers there, but it was really just a release to say, listen, we really enjoyed the road. And at this point in time, Tobago, yes, you get 100%, you get 100 out of 100. Next year, masqueraders have signaled that they will be returning and with friends.
Well, in terms of the rain, I think Tobago has proved itself in terms of rain and fets that the only thing that rain really stops is cricket, right? So yes, the rain came down and you do have a horse shoot, but that just proves that you were there despite the odds, right? Just like every other Tobagonian for the after party, and I see that it was an enjoyable experience
yes, it was.
overall. All right. So before the carnival season, or within the carnival season as it had started, you mentioned that we needed to increase the security on the island. And this was a very big concern because you know that the crime on the island itself has increased exponentially, I would say. Yeah. So in terms of like our fetes that we take part in and these type of things, what was the security like in your opinion? Was it adequate enough security for the season?
So definitely before the season, there was an upsurge, an increase in serious crimes. And I know that through ACP Hazel's leadership, while she was still attached to Tobago, we started the conversation across all the stakeholders. And ACP Suberu came on board and he continued the meetings as well with ACP Hazel. Just planning what will be done to ensure that we understand that there will be additional security on the island and the measures that are going to be put in place to ensure Carnival would be safe. And so said, so done.
Yes.
Carnival was safe. We did see the patrols of the police on the streets.
Yes.
In and around Scarborough and environs. They really managed the traffic flow for masqueraders to get to come into the route and be able to participate. Even the spectators, everything was really well organized, and it came from the planning. And I must say kudos to them for really initiating that very early. But I know all masqueraders felt safe. Nobody felt at risk. Even Juve morning, which has sort of a stigma for that higher risk. Juve morning was excellent. A lot of people said this was the best Juve they've ever attended, right? So it speaks to everybody playing their part, and we all won at the end.
Okay, and I must put in there that a lot of people were saying that Tobago actually had one of the safest carnivals that they've ever attended. So I think in terms, adding to your comments that you would have mentioned about, the plans and the preparations put in place for security, I think that it was well done from the public's point of view. It was a well done security team. Yeah, I did see the patrols on the highway myself. I mean, some people weren't too happy to be passing through Spring Garden, but it was the best thing for the safety of all carnival participants and everything like that, right? So one more question before we go to our short break. What are your thoughts on the travel plans that were set in place by the Sea Bridge and the Air Bridge? And do you think that the increase on the Sea Bridge had a significant impact on who can attend the carnival?
Well, definitely what the Port Authority pledged, they delivered.
Yes.
Right? They pledged that from the Thursday, we would see 4 sailings per day. And that worked well. I would tell you on Wednesday, my band had a challenge. Sorry, on Tuesday, my band had a challenge. And we really needed to get some stuff across Wednesday morning. Wednesday is the day that the Port Authority does not have a sailing from Port of Spain to Tobago. Probably next year we could look at it, and we do have that sailing the Wednesday morning. But outside of that, they would have delivered on all the additional sailings. I know a lot of people took advantage of it and they got to the island of Tobago and we saw it on the streets, right? The Hoteliers Association, this morning they are boasting, right? The villas, the townhouses, most of the hotel room stock, everything was well patronized.
Yes.
Right? So I must say that the inter-island ferry worked. With regards to Caribbean Airlines, the airport would have been swamped over the days of Thursday, Friday, right? And it speaks to the demand to get to the island, even though they would have put on additional flights.
Yes.
Clearly, there is a demand for more persons to be able to come across to the island. So I'm really hoping that next year, when the new terminal opens, it allows for more carriers
Yes.
to be able to move persons to the island. Not necessarily that for the foreigner that they have to go through Port of Spain, but they can now land directly here in Tobago.
Right. Lovely. So I love how Mr. Sandy just brought us into what we might be able to expect for next year. All right, before we take a short break, I'd like to tell you what is coming up next, and those are the Carnival projections for 2025. So maybe you'll hear it here first, what we can expect when 2025 turns that corner. So before I go, I just want to encourage you to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning.
At 7:27 this morning here on Tobago Updates, we are back and we are continuing in this discussion on our Carnival, I would say Carnival preparations for 2025. So, I mean, if you unfortunately missed out Carnival 2024, Mr. Sandy is promising a 2025 Carnival experience that we can look forward to. Improvements, maybe a few additions that we may be able to learn about this morning. So to our viewers that are just joining us on our various platforms, we are here with Mr. Sandy, who is going to take us through our projections for 2025's Carnival, right? So in our previous discussion, you spoke about some improvements that you'd like to see for the 2025 Carnival experience. You mentioned the staging, you mentioned a few things like the marketing and stuff like that. So can you tell us what exactly you'd like to see in terms of improvements for these things?
Well, definitely this year, what we got was a staging, an area designated for the masqueraders to cross, right? But not a physical stage. And I think going into year 4, it will be ideal that we do get the stage, right? This year plans were made and a design structure was done, but I would like to see for 2025 that be implemented. And we do have that physical stage to cross.
Yes.
Because when you look at what transpired at the staging this year, people really enjoyed themselves. But if it is we want to develop the product we call Tobago October Carnival, there are certain key elements that the market is accustomed to, right? Let's make sure that that is there. Even for this year, I did see the Tobago Old Time Wedding, some elements of that would have been introduced at the staging.
Right.
And, you know, persons are saying, what makes Tobago Carnival different from the others? We can't just duplicate the others. My point is that there are some things that we have to do that is commercial type, that is industry standard that people are accustomed to. You use those items to draw people here. And when you bring now and they're here, you introduce the Old Time Wedding, all those other natural Tobago elements into it. That is what puts the icing on the cake. We can't just market that alone and expect to attract the thousands of visitors.
Yes.
Right? So the physical stage will really play a key role in that. In terms of marketing, we really need to bring the brand awareness on the island much earlier.
Yes.
If you drive down the Carnival Highway, when you swing from Wilson Road going down to Light and Life, that signage that was put up there last week, I really felt proud. I think it was like Wednesday morning or so I saw them up. And I felt proud about that sort of signage being put up. My point is that things like that should be put up months in advance.
Yeah.
July, August is a peak period here for visitors on the island. If they see branding speaking to Tobago Carnival, it is still time for them, one, to look at a band, because most bands would have already launched.
Right.
And two, book accommodation, because accommodation will still be present and will still be available. And it puts them in a position in advance to make preparations to be back here in October by just putting up that sort of branding and making that awareness happen. The activations in Trinidad, we have National Carnival coming up. We really need to hit some main activities and be present there to do some marketing. The regional ones, we will just have to kind of target which ones we want to hit. And I mean, over the years, we will get better at it. But these are things that we need to put in place coming for 2025. And for the Tobagonian who showed up at the band house on Saturday to get a costume for Sunday, I'm saying to you, it's unfair to us, the bands. You know, some of us could have accommodated you, some of us could not have.
Right.
And we don't really want to see people leaving disappointed. So I'm saying, let's buy in early. The mass bands have the offerings very early. Let's buy in early, make your down payments, because for those who were able to participate, on Sunday when I was walking around with the masqueraders at the rest stop, they were saying thank you, thank you, thank you, because they really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really worth your while. It's really worth the money that you pay for the costume. Tobago's Carnival is one of the most affordable carnivals there is in the world. When you look at the pricing that we set for the costumes, and for what you get for that offering is really affordable. So we're just saying buy in early. That way we could prepare much better for you. So those are some of the things that we would want to see happen when it comes to mass on a whole for 2025. Of course, more ideas are welcome, and there are things that we will work on, and just want that the Festivals Commission, Mr. Kawan and his team, work with us in planning out for 2025.
Right. So we're looking at, you know, we're speaking to the planning and things like that. You mentioned that a lot of people would like to see what makes Tobago Carnival different from the other carnivals that we see. So is there any additional things that we can look forward to that would make Tobago Carnival unique? I mean, you mentioned things like the old time wedding that we saw in the carnival experience. So what exactly, or not exactly, but give me something precise as to what we can look forward to in 2025 in terms of a unique carnival experience for Tobago.
It's not something that I could put my finger on just yet. And it's one of those things that, you know, we really have to speak with the elders.
Yes.
And get their perspective, because they're the historians. They're the ones who would have been participating in Carnival when it was just National Carnival alone. And they're the ones who would have been participating in heritage and those activities. So listening to them and getting the concepts from them and trying to modernize it, because you really have to, in marketing it, you have to really sell it in a modern way for the persons on the outside when they see it on social media to say, you know what, yes, I want to do that when I get to Tobago. One unique thing I saw on Saturday afternoon, I was going down Strawberry Local Road, and I saw Mr. Hosford had a goat race track set up.
Yes.
And they had goat racing. So another unique thing that is to Tobago, that is something that happened during the weekend, and bringing some of that exposure to the market. You know, if it is we had said to the bands, listen, we have this thing set up. If it is each band, make sure from your visitors, let's find a way to incorporate them to get that experience. Yeah, those are some of the things that we just need to do so that when persons do come on the island and they enroll for mass, but there are other elements that we can add to it so that when they leave here the Monday or the Tuesday, they could say, yes, Tobago was really an experience. I didn't just buy a costume and end up on the road. You know, it was more, I engaged in a lot more during the carnival.
I think some of those activities were very much attention grabbing, because you mentioned the goat track, right? And I'm being honest, I was a passerby. I passed later on in the afternoon when it was getting a bit dark. You know, it's getting dark earlier these days. And I'm seeing goats just pile up at the side of the road with tags on their ears. And people are in there judging goats. And I'm like, what is happening? Yeah. Now that you mentioned there was a goat track set up during the weekend, and it really did bring a crowd. If people were like me who were passing and, you know, what's going on with these goats kind of thinking, they probably would have stopped and taken in the whole show itself. So we're looking at things that are very unique to Tobago. We normally have, you know, a normal goat race, but we saw this happen over the carnival weekend. Yeah. Right. So aside from the carnival experience itself, you have some of the things that are just Tobagonian that are happening on that weekend. Yeah. Okay. In terms of now, you're speaking to your team now, right? in some light, we both the marketing and we both some of the improvements that we'd like to see in terms of staging and stuff. Now, in speaking to your team, what are some improvements you'd like to see from your team itself? Your your stakeholders, those planning the programs and stuff like this. What would you like to see?
So with regards to the bands, as we're leading up to the carnival, registration would have rolled out, and we'd have seen where bands would have registered from small, medium, and large. And on the day on the road, I saw some bands, and you're registered as a band, but your numbers were really small, 20, 30. And yes, we would have put the bands, well, Festival Commission would have arranged the clusters. So it's a group of bands behind one single music truck. What I'm really hoping is that these bands that were clustered, that these band leaders will now work together. And the possibility can exist where they form one band, but they are now different sections. So they still maintain their identity in this one band. And I think if we do that and we pool the resources together, there will be less of a dependency on the state. I really want to encourage the bands to try their best to pool resources together. And I think when we pool the resources together, the sponsors, the corporate sponsors will see that.
Yes.
And they will buy into us a lot more and earlier in the game. Right? So it's one of the things that for me personally, I would like to see happen rather than we wait until for Festivals Commission to say to us, well, we need to cluster you and this is what they're gonna, this is the cluster that they're going to be put into. And then sometimes we're not really, we don't like the cluster that we are aligned to, right? Some of the feedback I got from some band leaders. So I'm saying, let's take front. Let's use the cluster system to create bands, right? So that when we present band Roxborough, it is really a combination of 7 bands, which is from the prior year, but it's now 7 sections. And we create this band called Roxborough. Just using it as an example, right? And that we are together on the road, and it showcases one band name, different sections. It's possible. It has been done in other parts of the world. It's been done right in Trinidad during National Carnival. So let's take the learnings from there and implement it here. I don't want to say it's a buff, right? But it's really us working on improving what we have.
Some advice on improvements, yes.
Yes, we really have to do that. If it is we want the Tobago Carnival to really grow and elevate, because persons on the outside who are now hearing about it. I remember right after St. Lucia Carnival this year, there was a buzz. People were like, St. Lucia Carnival was really, St. Lucia had all of that because of the kind of content that came out on social media right after. Right now, the social media content coming out of Tobago is a lot.
Yes.
And a lot of persons are sending messages, next year I will be on the road with you guys, right? And these are people who, they're expressing that they regretted not coming to Tobago this year. So it's good that we're getting those sort of feedback right now. And it's just to continue to plan for when the people do arrive, that we are able to execute and deliver for the carnival.
Right. I know this is a bit of a big question to end our interview this morning, but you had spoken to the funds that were allocated for the carnival season this year for Tobago. Do you want to see an improvement in the funding next year, or do you think that the funding that we had this year was actually adequate because we're seeing the positivity that came out of the carnival itself?
Yeah, well, all right. So funding on 2 levels. The bands, or stakeholders rather, would have received funding from the Tobago House of Assembly to really help and assist in producing everything from the promoters, the PAN, the Calypsonians, the mass bands, right? And I know for certain the mass bands, they did express gratitude in receiving the funds that they would have received on the day, and it was really put into their product. You know, I mean, for example, for us at Iconic Mass, what we were able to do is to now offset it against some costume sales and offer to the public at a reduced price. So that went well. When we look at overall funding, I mean, the budget was announced, and I think it was 9 million that was announced as the budget. And persons started to question if that is really the right amount. How much money will ever be enough?
Yes, that's
you
true.
know, One thing is that what the Carnival does for Tobago, and this is what we need to look at, it brings in millions of dollars to the economy,
Yes.
right? From estimates is over 20-something million that it brings in. When you look at the amount of persons that arrive on the island and the average spend that they have to spend per day on transport, accommodation, meals, attending events, playing mass, right? You're looking at over 25, I think it was 25 to 27 million that comes into the economy.
So you are seeing that turnover, even
Right, so the
though...
hoteliers are benefiting,
Yes.
the car rental guys are benefiting. These are the people you may not necessarily interview or hear speak up, but they are benefiting. There are lots of vendors that would have been on the streets and benefited. And this is the economy of Tobago benefiting, and that is where we need to focus. What do we invest in to make sure that more comes in to the island and that more persons are able to benefit from the business, from the tourism that comes to the island?
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I think we really need to focus. And the October Carnival has proven that in the absence of the jazz, that it brings that level of funds into the economy, and it is a product that needs to stay, right? And let's continue to work on it and develop it. Let's invest in it. So if it is we're saying that we want Festivals Commission to put a little more funding behind it,
Yeah.
it's not just for getting money's sake, but it's really funding to produce something that is bigger, that brings more revenue to the economy of Tobago.
I think you're mentioning what we can do as an island. In terms of the youth, the carnival being there in the absence of jazz, I'm looking at what the jazz can really do in addition to the carnival itself. So I really do look forward to the 2025 on a whole carnival experience, and maybe let's see what jazz brings as well. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Dexter Sandy, for being with us here this morning. As I said when I first started, it's always a delight having you here with us. We are looking forward to seeing what your plans and stuff come into fruition for next year, right? I do look forward to that. So thank you once again for being with us here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Viewers, thank you so much for staying tuned, and you are to stay tuned for what's coming up next. We'll hear a little bit about some promotions for your Christmas season. So I encourage you to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.